Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
It was a normal Tuesday morning, clear and beautiful. The date was September 11th, 2001. In New York City, the sky was a bright, peaceful blue. People were beginning their day, heading to work in tall buildings, buying coffee, and planning their tasks. They expected a usual day, full of city sounds and routines. No one could know that this calm morning would soon turn into a day of unimaginable sorrow and change. It would become a historic day of tragedy. At precisely 8:46 in the morning, this peace was broken. A large airplane suddenly struck the North Tower of the World Trade Center. The building was immense, one of two famous twin towers that stood tall over the city. The impact caused a huge explosion, and then a thick cloud of smoke and fire poured from the upper floors. People below, on the streets, looked up in disbelief. Their faces showed confusion and deep shock. What was that? Was it an accident? A terrible mistake? Soon, the news spread very fast. Television channels interrupted their regular programs. They showed live pictures of the burning tower. People across New York, then across the whole country and around the world, stopped everything. They gathered around screens, listening to radios, or talking to each other with worried voices. They watched the terrible fire and the damage. The entire world paused to witness an event that seemed impossible. It was clear this was not just an accident. Something much darker, much more serious was unfolding before everyone's eyes. 2. The plan. The terrible events of that day were not a sudden accident. They were part of a long and secret plan by a terrorist group called Al-Qaeda. This group's leader was Osama bin Laden. He and his followers were very angry with the United States. Al-Qaeda had strong reasons for their anger. They did not like that the United States supported Israel. They were also upset that American soldiers were in Saudi Arabia. This was because Saudi Arabia is home to holy sites for Muslims. Also, the group disliked the United States' actions against Iraq at that time. Osama bin Laden believed that America was against Muslim people around the world. Osama bin Laden declared war against the United States in 1996. He said that all American soldiers must leave the Arabian Peninsula. In another message in 1998, he said that Muslims should attack American targets. He believed this would force the United States to change its policies. The idea for the attacks came from a man named Khalid Sheikh Mohammed in 1996. Osama bin Laden approved the plan later, in late 1998 or early 1999. He gave money and leadership for the plan. He helped choose the people who would carry out the attacks. 19 hijackers were chosen for the mission. Some of these men, like Nawaf al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Midhar, had fought in wars before. Others, like Muhammad Atta, Marwan al-Sheikhi, and Ziad Jarrah, came from a group in Hamburg, Germany. These men were educated and could speak English. This helped them live in Western countries. The hijackers came to America to learn to fly airplanes. For example, some, like Hani Hanjour, already had a pilot's license, but still needed training. Others, like the Hamburg group members, learned at flight schools in Florida. They spent months learning to fly large commercial airplanes, practicing their skills. In the spring of 2001, the remaining hijackers arrived in the United States. In July 2001, Mohammed Atta met with another planner in Spain to confirm the final details. The plan was now ready. 3. The day of the attacks. The morning of September 11, 2001, started like any other Tuesday. Blue skies covered New York City and other parts of the United States. But this calm would not last. 19 terrorists took over 4 commercial airplanes. These planes were chosen because they had a lot of fuel for long flights, meaning they could cause more damage. The first plane to be hijacked was American Airlines Flight 11. It had taken off from Logan International Airport in Boston. 5 terrorists were on board. They used small knives, called box cutters, and a spray called mace to take control of the plane, hurting some people. At 8:46 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Flight 11 was deliberately flown into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. It hit the building between the 93rd and 99th floors. A huge explosion happened, and smoke and fire burst from the tower. Many people watching on TV or from the streets thought it was a terrible accident. However, just 17 minutes later, the terrible truth became clear. At 9:03 a.m., a second plane, United Airlines Flight 175, also from Logan International Airport in Boston, hit the South Tower. This plane, with another 5 hijackers, crashed into the building's southern face, between the 77th and 85th floors. The impact was strong, and more fire and smoke rose into the sky. When the second tower was hit, people across America and the world realized that these were not accidents. The United States was under a planned and terrible attack. While this was happening in New York, a third plane was also involved. American Airlines Flight 77 had departed from Washington Dulles International Airport near Washington, D.C. 5 hijackers were on this plane. They took control about 31 minutes after takeoff. At 9:37 a.m., Flight 77 crashed into the west side of the Pentagon in Arlington County, Virginia. The Pentagon is the main building for the U.S. Department of Defense. This crash caused a large part of the building to fall down, adding to the day's horror and confusion. There was also a fourth plane, United Airlines Flight 93, which had left from Newark International Airport in New Jersey. This plane was running 42 minutes late. 4 hijackers were on board. They stormed the cockpit and took control at 9:28 a.m., turning the plane towards Washington, D.C. They were believed to be aiming for another important target, such as the United States Capitol building or the White House. But the passengers and crew on Flight 93 learned about the earlier attacks from phone calls. They understood the extreme danger. These brave individuals decided to fight back against the terrorists. A fierce struggle began on the plane. At 10:03 a.m., Flight 93 crashed into a rural field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The passengers' courage stopped the hijackers from reaching their final target, saving many more lives in Washington, D.C. After these shocking events, the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, made an unprecedented decision. At 9:42 a.m., they ordered all civilian aircraft in the sky over the continental U.S. to land immediately. No new planes were allowed to take off. This was the first time in American history that all flights were stopped. The day's events caused the deaths of 2,977 people, changing the course of history for the United States forever. 4. The heroes on Flight 93. United Airlines Flight 93 departed from Newark, New Jersey. The plane was scheduled to leave earlier but had a delay. This delay became very important. On board, there were 7 crew members and 33 passengers, along with 4 hijackers. After the hijackers took control of the plane, passengers and crew began to make phone calls. They used both mobile phones and onboard airphones. From these calls, they learned shocking news from the ground. They heard about the other planes that had crashed into the World Trade Center towers and the Pentagon. This made them understand something critical. Their plane was not just being hijacked for money or a trade. It was also going to be used as a weapon. The passengers and crew knew they had to act. They made a brave decision to fight back against the hijackers. They started a rebellion in the plane. They worked together, moving towards the cockpit where the hijackers were. They tried to get inside. The hijackers, fearing that the passengers would take control, decided to crash the plane. At 10 minutes and 3 seconds past 10 in the morning, Flight 93 crashed into a field. This was near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. All 44 people on board died, including the crew, passengers, and hijackers. Investigators later believed that the hijackers wanted to hit an important building in Washington, D.C. They thought the target was either the United States Capitol building or the White House. The brave actions of the passengers and crew on Flight 93 stopped the plane from reaching its target. Their courage on that day saved many more lives. 5. The towers fall. For many people in the World Trade Center towers, the situation became very scary. They were trapped high up, above where the planes hit. Fires burned and smoke filled the air. Stairwells were blocked, making it impossible to go down. People went to the roofs hoping for help, but doors were locked. No helicopters could come because of the smoke and heat. Some people, in great fear and pain, chose to jump from the tall buildings. More than 200 people fell to their deaths. Sadly, over 90% of the people who died in the towers were on or above the floors where the planes crashed. For example, in the North Tower, about 1,400 people died, mostly trapped on upper floors. In the South Tower, around 600 people were on or above the impact zone, and only a few were able to escape. Down below, Brave firefighters, police, and paramedics rushed to the World Trade Center. Hundreds of these emergency workers ran into the burning buildings. They climbed stairs, looking for people to save. They were true heroes, putting their own lives in danger. However, there were problems. Different emergency groups used different radios, so they could not always talk to each other clearly. Because of this, some warnings about the buildings falling did not reach all the people inside. Many police officers were able to leave after getting orders to evacuate, but many firefighters did not hear these calls. 17 minutes after the North Tower was hit, the second plane crashed into the South Tower. This plane hit at a lower point and with more force. The fires inside the South Tower burned for 56 minutes. Then, at 9:59 a.m., the South Tower could not stand anymore. It fell to the ground. This was a shock to everyone, as it was hit second but fell first. Some quick-thinking people in the South Tower, or those below the impact, were able to leave in the 17 minutes between the two plane crashes. Some companies even told their workers to leave after the first plane hit the North Tower, which saved many lives. After the South Tower fell, the North Tower continued to burn. It had been hit first, and the fires raged for 1 hour, 41 minutes, and 53 seconds. Finally, at 10:28 a.m., the North Tower also collapsed. The sight was horrifying. Both massive towers, symbols of New York City, were gone. A huge cloud of dust and broken pieces of concrete and metal covered all of Lower Manhattan. The area became dark, and everything was covered in gray powder. Other buildings nearby were also badly damaged or destroyed. Many emergency workers died that day trying to save others. In total, 414 emergency workers lost their lives. This included 343 firefighters, 23 police officers from New York City, and 37 police officers from the Port Authority. Almost all of them died when the towers fell. 6. A nation in shock. The attacks shocked everyone in the United States. For the first time ever, the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, stopped all civilian airplanes from flying across the country. Mr. Ben Sliney, who was in charge of air operations that day, gave the order. Many planes already in the air had to land right away. Countries like Canada helped, taking in hundreds of unexpected flights. This was called Operation Yellow Ribbon. Across America, people were very sad and scared, but they also showed a strong sense of national pride. Many people flew American flags. Police officers and firefighters from different cities traveled to New York to help look for people. Thousands of children lost a parent. Many Americans gave blood to help the injured. President George W. Bush spoke to the nation from the White House. He talked about the attacks and how America would respond. His approval rating went up very high. New York City's mayor, Rudy Giuliani, was also seen as a strong leader during this time. To help those affected, many special funds were quickly started to give money to victims' families. The government also made plans to ensure the country could keep running even in a crisis. Other countries around the world shared their sadness and support. Leaders from many nations condemned the attacks. The United Nations Security Council passed Resolution 1368, agreeing to fight terrorism. British Prime Minister Tony Blair said his country stood shoulder to shoulder with the United States. Iran's President Mohammad Khatami also expressed understanding for America's feelings, and some Iranian citizens lit candles to show sympathy. Sadly, not all reactions were good. There was a rise in hate crimes against people who looked different, especially Muslims and South Asians. Some people were attacked or hurt because of their appearance. For example, a Sikh man named Balbir Singh Sodhi was killed in Arizona because people thought he was Muslim. President Bush asked Americans to treat Muslim citizens with respect. 7. The long aftermath. After the attacks, the United States quickly began what it called the War on Terror. President George W. Bush announced that America's goal was to bring Osama bin Laden and his group, Al-Qaeda, to justice. The United States and its allies soon invaded Afghanistan. Their aim was to remove the Taliban government, which refused to give up Al-Qaeda leaders hiding in their country. Many countries around the world stood with the U.S. NATO also used its Article 5 for the first time, meaning an attack on one member was an attack on all. U.S. forces looked for bin Laden for many years. He stayed hidden for almost 10 years, until May 2011, when U.S. Special Forces found and killed him in Pakistan. The war in Afghanistan continued for much longer, affecting many lives. The attacks also caused major changes within the United States government and daily life. In 2002, the Department of Homeland Security was created. This was a very big change, bringing many government agencies together to work on protecting the country from terrorism. Air travel especially changed. Airplane cockpits were made stronger to prevent hijackers from getting inside. The government also created the Transportation Security Administration, known as the TSA. TSA agents now check all passengers and their bags at airports. These strict new rules made air travel much safer, but also added new steps and waiting times for everyone. However, the impacts of September 11 were deeply personal for many. Thousands of tons of toxic dust covered Lower Manhattan after the World Trade Center towers fell. This dust had many dangerous chemicals. Many first responders, like firefighters, police officers, and paramedics, breathed in this toxic air. People who lived and worked near Ground Zero also suffered. Because of this, thousands of people later got very sick. They had serious breathing problems, cancers, and other diseases years after the attacks. Many of these brave men and women have died from their illnesses, and more continue to get sick. The government created the James L. Zadroga 9/11 Health and Compensation Act, which set up the World Trade Center Health Program. This program gives medical care and help to those suffering from these long-term health issues. The sadness and health struggles from September 11 have stayed with many families for a long time. 8. Remembering and rebuilding. After the terrible attacks, a massive cleanup started at Ground Zero. Workers spent many months removing tons of debris and ruined buildings. By May 2002, the site was clear. The Pentagon, also damaged, was repaired within 1 year, showing a quick return to normal operations there. Leaders then decided to rebuild at the World Trade Center site. They planned several new buildings, a museum, and a special memorial. This was to honor the nearly 3,000 victims and to remember the tragic day. The National September 11 Memorial and Museum opened in New York City. It features 2 large reflecting pools placed in the footprints of the original Twin Towers. The names of those who died are carved around these pools, offering a quiet place for remembrance. Construction of the new One World Trade Center began in 2006. This tall building became a symbol of hope and strength for the city. It was finished and opened in 2014, standing 1,776 feet high. Its completion marked a significant step in New York's recovery. The events of September 11, 2001, changed the world forever. These attacks made countries think differently about security and how they work together. It was a day of great sadness, but also a time when people showed incredible bravery and a strong will to rebuild. How do you think remembering such difficult times helps us build a better future?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.